Good Rates and Lanes podcast. I'm your host, Rico Muhammad. I will be joined shortly by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Kind of a little bit of a different setup. Don't worry about it. We rearranging some things, making some things a little bit different around here. But we need you guys to do us one big, huge favor, if you would. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started tonight. As always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channels and the videos. It helps us get the message and the content out to a broader audience. Remember to tell a friend to tell a friend. We want to try to get our subscriber base up, try to get the numbers up so we can get into that infamous YouTube algorithm and also the algorithms for Facebook and all the other platforms that we are broadcasting live on. So if you guys could do that for us, we would greatly appreciate it. It helps us get it out to a broader channel, a broader audience, as we said before. And without any further ado, because we don't like to keep things belaboring the point, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow, into the show this evening. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
Rico, we're doing great. I'm actually really excited about tonight's show. I spent last weekend, the weekend of the, I guess, weekend of the 14th, 15th, with our guest David Brannon. Him and I hit it off and had a lot to talk about. His company, Evans, and myself we were at a show on behalf of Next Gen in Trucking. It's an organization that's been on the show, Lindsay Trent, and we were there manning the booth, and we had such a great time. It was at a teachers conference to introduce young people to the transportation industry. And I got to tell you, Dave is as passionate about the industry as you and I, and it's great to have him on the show tonight because it'll just be a continuation of the fun and the laughs we had that whole weekend. So, if with no further ado, let's bring our guest David Brannon on.
Absolutely. Good evening, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rico? Nice to see you, Chuck. How are you doing?
Great, man. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time out to come on and join us.
Oh, no, absolutely. I look forward to it. And Chuck was certainly, likewise, it was certainly a pleasure to spend some time with you at the Counselors Association.
We had so much fun. You're an interesting guy. You're a passionate guy. You love the industry. You've been in for a long, long time. How did you tell our listeners? Number one, you're the director of equipment at Evans Delivery, correct?
Correct.
And in that job, what is your main function? What exactly do you do?
So we just fuel. I'll start with the easy one, I guess, for that. So we have, which I'll get into in a little bit. We have a fuel program for all our owner operators and fleet owners. I manage that as well and work with all the merchants on that. We provide chassis for some of the intermodal people. We provide a lot of trailing equipment,
right?
Van trailers, chassis, open decks. Not so much in power since we are an independent contractor,
right?
And small owner fleet. We do, in the event of an accident or something, we do have a rental program through Penske or whomever, but we can get equipment. So that's what we do, and we provide some other programs, which I'll probably talk about through the department for to help with some cost and maintenance and repairs.
So Evans big. So let me just get this straight. Evans is huge in the intermodal sector.
Correct.
I understand that. You're one of the bigger providers in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I don't know. We're number 22 on the last count. We're on Transport Topics. We're number 22 on the for hire carrier. Right. In the intermodal, we've got to be. Oh boy, I should know this. I mean, number 3, 4, probably largest privately held intermodal company. So we're in all the ports, all the railheads, up to the West Coast, obviously. Right. So intermodal's huge. It's still probably, even though through all the growth we've had, it's still probably 50 or better than 50% of all revenue. And then truckload and brokerage, and we do some final mile stuff now as well, right. And things like that. But intermodal and dray is certainly Certainly one of our big ones. And we entered that in the 1970s and truckload in the 80s. So yeah, it's been an interesting
So
run.
how long has Evans been in business? Tell us the story on Evans.
Yeah, sure. So Evans was founded here in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, where I'm sitting in 1939.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we're 80, what is that, 30, 83, 86 years. So
Wow.
by Albert Evans, Senior. They started doing local deliveries, local warehousing, household good moving for Sears. For any listeners who remember Sears.
Oh yeah, may they rest in peace.
Which you could buy everything from Sears, including a house.
Yes.
And it would come with all
That's
the
true.
nails, everything you needed to do it yourself. So we were Sears, they did that, and they in 70 they moved into Crossdock. They got into Interstate at that point. They had a Crossdock up here, so they run in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, probably parts of Mid-Atlantic. In the 70s, and they got into the intermodal business in Philadelphia, which kind of started that. Still asset based, still company trucks,
Right.
except that. Then in the 80s, they bought West Motor Freight out of Boyertown, Pennsylvania, which was founded, I think, in 1903.
Wow.
That was a delivery company with horse and buggy, so that put them in the full truckload market in the Mid-Atlantic and New England states. So kind of short haul, full truckload in very difficult lanes, Chuck, as you know, being Mid-Atlantic, New England.
Yeah.
So very difficult lanes, very, very difficult.
Probably some of the harshest lanes in the continent of North America.
Yeah.
Certainly east of the Mississippi. When you get into places like Montana, it's pretty awful.
Well, true, fair enough. So that, and then they had West Contract, which was kind of a couple of agents.
Right.
So you could start to see now where the agent model was starting
Right.
to develop there. So as time came and went, there was more and more interest in that agent model and started to grow that. And then probably in the 90s, maybe early 2000, the full focus went to become a non-asset and the agent model, which we are today. And then about 2010, 12, the growth really started going there to where we are today with about 700 locations, 8,000 trucks.
Whoa.
Yeah. Primarily our locations, of course, are going to be Seaport from New York, the port of New York,
right,
along the east, Savannah, so and so, Jacksonville, around to Houston, and of course inland as well. So with a lot of truckload brokers, but we run several brands. There are several companies that people probably have heard of. So we own Packard, which is under our West. That was out of Chicago, or out of the Shanahan, Illinois.
Right.
That's primarily open deck and flatbed. West Motor Freight, which I mentioned, still is still primarily truckload, van truckload, some flatbed. Of course, Evans Delivery is intermodal, and some truckload as well. Evans runs about 61 or 62 SCAC codes. It's pretty big. And a Great White Truckload Management out of Langhorne, PA, which was they run as well, truckload, van, flatbeds, and things like that nature. So, so come a long way since 1939.
Now, your agents, do they all run under the Evans banner, or how does that work?
No, so the agents in the intermodal world will run under one of the brands. We have about 60 some brands. So we have Land Transport, of course, Evans Delivery, Land Transport, 61 Transport. It just goes on and on and on. And the reason for that is a little bit of identity. So they're not stacked. Just take Savannah. We have a lot of trucks in Savannah at the port area there. So if every truck was Evans, it would be difficult to have your own customer base and your own identity, so to speak.
Yeah.
So all those brands down in there are kind of for that reason. So So that's on the intermodal side. Under the West and the Great Wide side, they run pretty much the same banner.
Right.
Because as you know, you get into that truckload market. It's a different demographic.
Oh, yeah, totally. And do you have any agents that are doing partial loads?
Um,
Not
I'm
the traditional LTL,
Yeah.
but partials. Like I know that today there's a huge burgeoning business. It's growing every year with partial open deck freight. And there's people doing it, and there's only one company I know of in all United States that's at any size doing it. That's Kaiser.
Interesting.
And he's out of Wisconsin and California, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And this guy's got it down to they've got it down to a science.
Uh-huh. I don't know that answer. I'm thinking we do. I know we do quite a bit for the government on some equipment,
Right.
some other larger customers as well. So I know there's multi-stop, but I don't know really the parcel side of that.
Right.
But interesting. No,
I got a question for you, Dave. I think things have kind of even out when it comes to intermodal and things of that nature from where it was during the pandemic. I remember we were doing a couple of shows and they were talking about the shortages of being able to get stuff moved out of the ports, and of course the rail wasn't nearly as affected as the ports were.
Correct.
How are things looking in the operation as far as that's concerned? How are things looking on that side of the operation?
Well, the ports have obviously slowed down. The equipment, and there really was never, it was kind of the argument, or not really the argument, but the conversation with the chassis shortage. There never really was a shortage. It was just really bad utilization, extended dwell time. The intermodal system. The intermodal system in the United States is pretty efficient. It was built very, very well.
Yeah.
It still is. But it was built to run on, I don't know the exact specific, but a 3-day dwell and a chassis comes back. It's a container, right. Brings an empty container back, the ports, trucks in and out, so on and so forth like that. So when you can't get things unloaded and things stack up, it just created an absolute.
Sure.
It was tough. I mean, it created a lot of the problems in the supply chain that everybody knows about.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of containers, a lot of boxes they couldn't get back to the ports to get on return ships. So ships were going back without them. So to answer your question, that has certainly corrected. Unfortunately, probably some of the negative side of that correction is, freight was very slow, or has slowed down tremendously. So that is definitely rail is the same thing. That's kind of back to
normal.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think we're down to, I don't know whether things are actually slow or back to a normal flow. And all of a sudden we have so many more carriers out there that are that weren't out there before, trying to handle this freight, and now there's so much less.
Correct.
And it's just and the spot market. Rico and I, we spent almost every show warning people about the spot market because it's too fickle, and so many people got into this business that had no right during the pandemic, playing that spot market, paying crazy amounts for insurance and stupid amounts for trucks and trailers. And that's great when you're making $5 a mile, but
right.
any of us that have been in any length of time know damn well that those rates of $5 and $10 a mile don't last.
No, they don't.
And
they don't
didn't.
at all. But you bring up a good point. I forget the statistic. The number of entry in new company startups and DOT numbers in 2000, 2001. And Rico, you might remember this, or Chuck. I forget. It was off the chart. The amount of people getting into this business. And it didn't take. I mean, we all knew, it wasn't going to. We didn't know when or how long it was going to last, but we knew, it was certainly an odd time.
I tell you, we're going into some very interesting times coming up. I don't know if UPS and those guys are going to be able to work things out to where they don't have to go on strike. And I think
that was settled, Rico.
Oh, ours is settled.
Yeah,
they were still doing something to go, but I know YRC and Yellow is still
that's another, you know what, the the YRC yellow thing, that's a whole other story. And now my understanding, and David, you could shed some light on this, but where they really got into trouble originally, they were a very well run company, Roadway especially, and the Canadian, and Yellow was as well in their time. But my understanding is they got into problems because of their pensions. They had people that retired at 65 years old that were supposed to die at 68 and live to be 100. Plenty of them, and that's what really broke them.
Yep. I think they're waiting for 35 million or something to get deposited to cover some pension problems.
Like 50 million.
Yeah, what's that?
It's like 50 million.
Oh, is it 50 million?
Yeah.
30 million, 50 million. Well, come on, Rico. What's the deal?
Yeah, you know what? At that point,
what's 20 million between friends, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Really, but unfortunately, and I hope we're not talking this, but you're really arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Exactly.
At this point, and I hope, you know what, that it was a good company. They didn't deserve to have this. Nobody deserves this because it wasn't badly run. They just got into some trouble, which can happen, and they just were not able to right themselves, which is too bad.
Correct.
It's just it's a sad story. And a lot of good people are going to lose their jobs. Now, the good thing is they'll be hired in a minute, but what happens to their seniority? People that have worked there for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I heard you earlier, Dave, you were talking about the things that you manage and run, and you were saying that you guys have a deal with Penske. Is that for your owner operators, that if their truck goes down, they have the ability to rent through you? You guys have a program where they can rent through you guys to?
Yeah, if they have a short term, like if they're in an accident and it's a non-fault kind of a thing, and they're going to be without a truck, for a period of time. We do offer that program for them where they can kind of stay working.
And what about for breakdowns, David? Same thing.
Same thing. Okay. Depending. I mean, it comes with some. I don't want to say it's an open gate. Free for all. It comes with some criteria.
Okay.
Because trucks are expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do offer that to our contractors and the agents as well. But yeah, if you have an existing truck that that either maintenance or an accident type of thing.
So can we drill down a bit? And this is something I'm really fascinated about, and I think some of our listeners will be too. Right now we are we're in a situation in the industry where, as we just mentioned, there's too many trucks, not enough freight. Expenses have gone sky high. Your operating costs between labor, forget about the carrying costs of the truck, but your labor, your maintenance, your fuel, your insurance, all those costs, replacing tires, all that stuff is it's insane. Mm-hmm. And to try to do it on freight that moves at $1.30 a mile somewhere, when your cost is almost, depends where you're running. If you're down where you are in the east, the Northeast, your costs can be almost double that. Right. With tolls. It doesn't take much in the Northeast. It's very, very expensive. So we do find people at the crossroads of their life right now. They've started these trucking companies, and some of them started well before the pandemic. And they're having a difficult time now because everything is so expensive. How does it work with an existing carrier that has 5 or 10 or 20 trucks interested in signing on as an agent with your company? How does that work exactly?
Yes, so they'll go through. You brought up a couple of good points. With Evans and the agent model and that the back office support, the accounts receivable, the cash management, the regulatory compliance, the insurance that we provide, all the equipment we provide, of course, the fuel program. Our burn last year was probably somewhere around 80 million gallons in fuel. So it's a pretty substantial fuel program we can offer. So it's fairly simple. Anybody listening, I guess they can certainly go on the website, Evans Delivery, and fill that out. Or if they can write down, my direct line is 570-218-3359. Certainly feel free to call me. I can get you to the proper recruiter, because we have recruiting obviously in intermodal. We have a Florida office, and several other offices. We have ones that specialize in asset intermodal brokerage, asset-based truckload, and things like that. So if anybody's listening and has questions, again, 570-218-3359, and I can get you to the right person depending on your desire. But to answer your question, Chuck, so you have somebody with 5-6 trucks, that's perfect, right up the alley. They get a hold of us. They go through a little bit of a vetting, an application process. Kind of look into that. We visit with our recruiters visit with them. We want to make sure we can help them succeed and become a better carrier,
Right.
which is kind of what we're about. We're here to help agents succeed in business. And of course, if they succeed, their drivers succeed. So if they succeed, then of course Evans succeeds. So that's kind of the whole goal. It's pretty simple. And then once we get through all that process, there's extensive training they go through. They come in, they're drivers. We have Evans University, which they can come in and learn.
Training for the agents, or
For the agents, exactly. They come in for a day or maybe it's 2 days. I'm not sure. They go through all the billing, how the billing systems work, right down to the tablets for the drivers we provide, and how ELDs work,
Right.
how the safety department works, how onboarding works. Every department person from every department visits with them, either online or in person. And then there's extended training too. We have field people in the field that will go to their office, whether it's field safety people, for our open deck certification. We have open deck training out in Chicago. So if somebody wants to drive a flatbed and maybe has never done that, we have securement classes.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit.
No. You're doing great.
You're doing
And by the way, everybody, if you right up underneath Dave, I posted the link to
there we go.
Delivery
There we
right there on right up underneath Dave. So
that's awesome.
If you want to go over there and check them out as well, there's the link. Make it easy for you. But no, Dave, go ahead and continue. By all means,
it's kind of one of those things, and obviously you can tell I'm not a professional podcaster, but when you live this stuff every day, you kind of it's easy to ramble, but you're not sometimes in the right, you kind of jump around a little bit.
You're doing great.
Just like I want to add, if there's any drivers
right,
who are listening, if you go onto that evansdelivery.com, in the top right corner, you'll see a tab that says Service Locator. If you click on Service Locator, it brings up a map with all these green dots in every state. So if you just hover or click on one of those green dots, it'll give you the local contact and office in that city. So just say Savannah or Chicago or Jacksonville or wherever. And if that's an area you want to operate your truck or your fleet, boom, it's right there. It has email, address, phone number. You're actually there you go. Oh, perfect. So right up there in the top right, right next to careers, store locator, right there. And then if you scroll down, right there, see those. So I don't know, Rico, you're in Atlanta, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you scroll down or enlarge that, I mean, there's a lot of it in Atlanta, but if you go down and just pick one of those in Atlanta, over here on the left, or maybe my left of the screen, you'll see the contact information for that particular office or that agent.
Right.
And then they can contact that agent, and then it should have their services, whether they're dray, truckload, open deck. So right there's LEO, and Georgia's cartage drayage.
Um,
you got a bunch of them here in Atlanta.
Yeah. So that's all. Atlanta's big.
Well, yeah. Look at how many people. So let me ask you something, David. If you have a city, and Atlanta is probably not a great example because it's so big, but a smaller city, and you've got an agent there that's already existing and runs flatbed trailers in, let's say, Charlotte, North Carolina. and somebody else calls and they want to do the same thing. Do you sometimes say, no, we've got too much capacity for this type of equipment in this area, or it doesn't really matter?
No, of course it matters because it has to work.
Got to make sense.
It has to work. So there could be some discussions there with existing people, and there has to be some acceptance there for sure. But we have a lot. When you look at that map, you see what we do works. Otherwise we wouldn't have those densities.
Yeah.
We provide, again, like I said, the technology, the advancements, and the programs to help the agents and the independent contractors succeed. And I think that's kind of proven by where we are and how successful Evans has become, and our agents. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't take that as a threat. They take that as a help.
Right.
Our agents work together very, 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 very well.
Cover freight. They work amongst themselves to cover freight. If one guy,
exactly.
And they always your agents, are they running brokerages as well as trucking? Everyone. So it's very similar to the Landstar model in some ways.
Yeah, very, very, very similar. We also have a brokerage division.
Right.
We have an office in Chicago and one in Florida. I think there's two in Illinois, one in Chicago. I'm not sure where the other one is, another in Illinois. And then we have, some other ones that run brokerage. We have some agents that run brokerage. For obvious reasons. As you well know, Chuck, it just makes a pretty diversified office. And depending on their customer, they might have a pretty big customer, a multinational or Fortune 500 customer that they might manage some of their logistics in a particular lane where they're very strong in.
Right.
So they'll handle that. And it's Evans is the breadth of Evans. It goes and goes and goes. And
it sounds it.
It goes. And
So
I've been here almost 9 years, and I still come in and you still learn every week. No
That's
doubt.
good.
You guys do the ports as well as the rail yard as well.
Yes.
I know in Atlanta, rail is pretty big, pretty huge here in Atlanta.
Oh, it's huge, and I mean it's a lot of landed hubs in there, and it's just rail's huge in Atlanta. And you go down southeast another 100 miles, and you got intermodal that's just massive. I mean that whole corridor in there is a lot of trucks, a lot of freight.
Well, and I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, and I know that they were going to be doing. I remember before I moved, they were building a really huge inland port deal there in South Carolina because they have the BMW manufacturing, and there's a lot of Michelin tire company and all that stuff right there in that corridor as well.
Yep, absolutely. I think Savannah somebody's going to fact check me. So I think Savannah could be the largest exporting port in the country. Yeah, it's Savannah's big.
Well, you know what?
Charleston's not as big, but it's kind of a little boutique-y kind of a thing. And,
right.
But it's growing.
Does some of your more custom like BMW thing,
right.
Little shower of water, but
yeah, every time California acts out in any way, whether it's a labor, or whatever, more business goes to those ports.
Oh yeah, Evans not having operations in California is an example of that. I mean, we did obviously, our agents did well when those ships started to move from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Yeah.
Our agents were not unhappy with that. So,
other than California, are there any states you're not in? I guess Hawaii and Alaska, probably, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if we have any in Dakota. We do have an agent in North Dakota. We have one in Montana. I don't know about Wyoming, Idaho, the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do have some up in Washington, Oregon. Boy, Chuck, maybe 5 or 6 states that I could think of.
Okay. And do any of your agents work with reefers?
Some, but very few. Very few. We're not that large in that area.
Right.
We,
Uh, But now when you bring on an agent, how do you vet their drivers that they hire? And they're running under your insurance and authority, so they've got to be vetted. So how is that done? It's all done by your safety department?
exactly. That's all in house. We don't farm that. That's not an outsourced item at all. So they go through the application and the onboarding process. I don't know all the criteria or the length of time. I think we reduced that from 2 years down. Our age, minimum is what it is. So yeah, that's all done in Jacksonville and Schuylkill Haven, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so when you get when you have an agent, let's use your example in North Dakota, and he wants to hire a new driver. How does that work? He's all the way in Fargo, North Dakota, let's say, and he's got to hire. He wants to hire a driver that's domiciled in Fargo. How does he vet that driver through the Evans safety system? Does he send him somewhere for a road test, or somebody come, or does he give the road test? How does that all work?
No, I don't believe they get it's all, well, a lot of it's digital, of course, with the online application.
Right.
The truck, and then of course their background and verification of experience. Since they're truck owners, I don't think that's a good question. To my knowledge, we don't do a road test.
The truck owner does it.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
And then the inspection has to be done. A new safety inspection.
Right.
Needs to be done and sent to us by a shop. There's some criteria around a shop as well. Right. And I think they may require pictures, right, left, front, back.
Yeah.
And that kind of is it. And then it just looks at the safety score, and of course, your drug testing phase.
Sure. Well, yeah.
And then if that all goes through, we have a department that has these packets that go out with their decals.
Right.
All their door criteria, the decal, the DOT number, their welcome packet with a fuel discount, how to use the fuel app, so on and so forth, like that. So it's pretty efficient process.
And what about things like is there a program for discount on tires? Because that's a huge expense.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is. We have an independent tire program that we help them with national accounts with 5, 6 different brands.
Right.
Some tier 1s, some tier 2s.
Right.
Some we have some intermodal folks that run just shorter miles in the South from Savannah to Atlanta.
Right.
They'll do a turn or two of those a day or whatever. So their tire requirements are a little bit different than somebody who's running over the road for one of the large manufacturers. So we try to have a good choice of tires for everybody, which is is a little difficult. Chuck, you can remember back in the day when there was 2. You had to pick from about 3 different tires.
That's right. You know what? When I started driving, we had split rims. If you guys remember those things.
Oh, I do 100%.
And 100%. You never met a tire man that had all of his fingers or both hands. So quite often they had a hook for a hand. That was, those things were dangerous. That's why they finally outlawed them.
Oh, no doubt. I remember them well. Absolutely. And you bring up reefers. I mean, how that has changed, now with, multi-temp, now you can get 3-4 different zones in them, telematics. It's just amazing how the technology advancing over the years has just improved things tremendously.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Now, your insurance, how big a deductible is it for your carriers?
I'm going to stay away from that. It's because there's a couple different options. I would feel more comfortable just staying.
Okay, not a problem.
And the only reason there's a few options that are based on maybe different specific needs or requirements or appetite maybe. Right. So, but they're all obviously fairly low.
So
what,
you got right now, like Chuck was saying, you got right now a little bit of topsy-turvy turmoil going
Correct.
on in the industry, and you got a lot of people that are, you know, jumped out here, may not have been prepared to deal with what came down the pike when you know, at once upon a time you could just throw anything against the wall and it would stick, and now it's getting a little bit more difficult as far as keeping operations up and running and keeping the truck loaded. So right now, how does the business look for Evans? Would Evans be a good right now? If someone was looking to try to change their operations over, would that be how would they determine if that's a good fit for them or not?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we get a lot of interest just because of the insurance rates. I mean, that's just a hands down. You have a smaller fleet owner who's facing those insurance rates. That certainly is a draw. Our footprint and our density is certainly a draw as well.
right.
You know, that, and our infrastructure, our offerings to the driver as well, from legal plan to the tire program to the trailer equipment, fuel, you know, so on and so forth like that. So it certainly is. Of course, you know, right now freight is, I mean, that's not a secret. But you know, we have the capacity and the infrastructure, and Chuck, you know this as well as everybody. It always comes back. It always,
it's, you know,
always,
it's peaks and valleys. We've seen this for, you know, I've seen this for the last 49 years. It's always peaks and valleys. It never stays low forever. It never stays high forever. It's all supply and demand. When people are out there buying stuff at whether it's Walmart or Home Depot or Lowe's or buying new cars or whatever, things are busy.
correct.
And when people right now, interest rates they've been raised again in Canada. So every time interest rates go up, that means that there's less money to spend on merchandise. And you know, and that's what happens. And when people are spending less, they don't require as much, and trucking isn't as needed as badly.
Correct.
You know, it's one of those cycles. It's all connected.
It is. And I mean, Evans is attractive because of its size. And like I said, its infrastructure and just its overall footprint. That when things come back, or even now, it's still obviously it's still a good move to make because of our size and our offerings. That we know we'll be well positioned, you know, to step right back in when things start to turn around a little bit. We're already plug and play, and that's it. You just go to work. For instance, right now we have a very large enterprise sales team here at the corporate office, and they're very busy right now. You know, fostering those relationships. There's a lot of our agents, you know, so that enterprise sales team is just that. It works with your big multinational or your big national shippers. Consignees or whatever, where that small office with 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 trucks isn't going to access. So we access those.
Right. Those if you go in as an 8,000 truck carrier,
exactly.
You know what? You're rubbing shoulders with the giants in the industry. Correct. Somebody with 6 to 30 trucks really doesn't get that opportunity.
Correct.
I'm really curious about this. So you get you have an agent, carrier, he gets onboarded. He has his own customers. Okay. Not all, but he has his own outbound. He's got an arrangement with a shipper in his town or city or her town and city. And they're moving that now directly for the shipper. They come on with Evans. Now Evans is going to do the billing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Once the billing is done, how quickly does the carrier get paid?
They turn in their bills by, I think there's a time period, by Tuesday or something of the following week, and they're paid on Friday.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. So if they do it, so their worst case, if they did a delivery on a Monday and they couldn't bill it for the following Tuesday,
right,
it would be less than 2 weeks.
Okay. And you're going to vet those customers. That's part of what you do, I presume.
Correct.
So you may come back to a carrier going, whoa, you're a customer. There's red flags. These guys are, you know, they bounced 4 checks already this month, or you know what, they're in trouble. If you read the Wall Street Journal,
Correct.
they're being sued for for $50 million or whatever.
Correct. But we're not, and sometimes if I had to say, we kind of talk about this internally. Sometimes I think Evans is so flexible that sometimes it can be too flexible. So yes, we have a collections department, a credit team out of Georgia, here in Schuylkill Haven and things like that, and they watch that stuff. You have to, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we don't. But there's all kinds of ways. Again, that Evans would be flexible with the agent if they want to do a risk, what we probably would call like a credit risk move.
Right.
There are steps. It's I guess what I'm trying to say. It's not, no, Chuck, you're not going to do that. It's okay. Here's what we have. Let's look at this, from a systematic kind of a manner. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what we've done with them elsewhere.
Right.
And try to get, like I said, what I said a while ago, the whole goal here is to make the agent and the driver successful.
Yeah, of course.
So if you, so there's all those tools in there that will help. But you're right. I mean, there's some shippers that just aren't going to get a truck over there.
Yeah, no,
Also-
they shouldn't.
Also,
Correct. And they should.
With you guys dealing with the ports and rails and stuff like that, that doesn't necessarily, that helps out for a driver, say for a so to speak, with their length of haul. They're not necessarily going out on a 700 mile run.
No, there are some of those that exist, but not, but certainly not as many. We have a lot of.
So they have an opportunity to get better quality home time.
Oh, 100%. I don't know how many of our drivers are home every night, but a large portion of them. Absolutely.
So you don't have you're not seeing the driver turnover within the Evans organization that some of the long distance guys are.
And even on a national scale, our percentage is less than any space you want to look at, or just as an overall CDL Class 8 truckload or whatever carrier. It's certainly lower. And we have our agents do, and we have so many different agents and personalities and things and the way they think of things. You brought up one, and I know one that he'll have a couple drivers just pull stuff from the port, drop it in the yard, take empties back, and he'll pay them however he pays them. Then his long haul folks will come in. They're not messing, they're not wasting time in the line at the port. They'll pick up in New York, they'll go to Chicago, they'll go to wherever, Cleveland or however that is. They'll come back with an empty, drop it. So they're satisfying the one that wants to get out and stretch their legs a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah.
As well as the ones that want to be home, and that's good business creativity.
It is. And you know what? It's amazing. You get drivers that are familiar with something, whether it's the port or a rail yard, and they don't waste, they don't waste the time going around a rail yard for 2 hours and then calling in going, well, I can't find the trailer. Where the guy that goes in there 3, 4, 5 times a day, he knows where everything is.
Yep, exactly. Oh no, it does. They like you said. I mean, they learn the ropes. They learn the ropes. So
they know who to ask.
Yep.
And they know what questions to ask.
And I neglected to mention when we got started, ladies and gentlemen, if you got a question that you would like to ask, if you want to get involved in the conversation, all you have to do is use the chat feature. If you type in the chat feature, that gives us the ability to see your question, and we'll try to definitely make sure that we get it answered or get it asked before we get out of here tonight. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Dave. I just forgot. I forgot to mention that when we first got started, and I don't know how many people may or may not have a question that want to maybe get one, throw one in at us.
No, I appreciate that, Rico. That was a good point. So, and I just looked over at something I wrote down too, as far as the drivers, and this is on the website. Local long haul. This is kind of our owner operator bullet point thing. Maintenance account. Forgot about the maintenance account. We could set up IFTA program. Insurance available for bobtail physical damage, occupational accidental insurance they can buy through us. Clean roadside bonus program. So every time you get a roadside, I'm not sure how many you have to have in a row. Weekly settlements, trailer program, fuel discounts, driver legal plan. The driver legal plan is really, really interesting. There's a flat fee. So if you do get a citation for whatever, there's an 800 number. You call that number, you get an attorney instantly, and you can, you can try to get in front of that. Get in front of that as fast as you can.
Right. Of course.
And then there's a lot of things covered: tire and plate program, fuel cards, referral bonus, and it just kind of goes on and on. So
if someone was enterprising and they didn't want to, because this is a huge thing that's taking place as well. You got a bunch of people that have jumped into the industry and bought a bunch of equipment, and they may not necessarily have a CDL themselves, but they may have a bunch of equipment or whatever. And if they're looking at a place to maybe a place to grow, to be able to bring their equipment and maybe hire drivers or whatever, is that something that you guys can enter? Is that something that they can entertain at Evans, or how?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that. I've seen those programs. Here, like I said, we have everything from a single truck owner to folks that have. Let me see. I know one owns probably close to 50.
Wow.
And then he has company drivers. The traditional company driver. Right. They're paid. W-2, just taxes, everything else, just like a company. And then he'll use independent contractors for those peak and valleys. So again, if you're in the industry or you have capacity or you want to become an agent, give us a call. We if it makes sense, we'll make it work. Put it that way.
So Dave, the freight that your enterprise salespeople, all the freight that they're selling, is first right of refusal always to Evans agents? They put it out to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
okay.
Yeah, they're working to keep that in house. So, absolutely, and they'll work with agents and in all those areas and put the plans together. So,
do your agents go to your sales team and go, listen, we're running from Chicago to Cleveland every day. We really need freight from Cleveland back to Chicago.
Yep, exactly.
And those guys are the guys and girls are the pros, and they go into that. They know who the shippers are.
Yep. From
Cleveland to back to Chicago and make everything a round trip.
Exactly. Or there could be another agent right. that's got an offsetting problem. They could go out to other customers and try to fill those lanes and help fill those lanes. But there's just so much knowledge here when you start getting.
Oh yeah.
Our agents, you get 700, 750 agents, and a lot of the agents are from dispatch rooms,
right?
Where they just think, hey, I want to go try some of my own. So they know this business very, very well.
So that's something, if you don't mind, Dave, if you could unpack a little bit, that just describe exactly what the agent model is at Evans, so that people are listening in, if it's something that may pique their interest.
Yeah,
sure. Maybe kind of unpack that the whole thing as far as what an agent is and what their function does.
So the real short elevator speech to that is an agent is their own business owner, who primary goal is to bring in drivers and take care of customers. That's their function. Evans will take care of everything else. We'll take all that backroom administration off their plate, from onboarding to driver background checks, to credit risk, to receivables, to insurance, and let them go haul freight as their primary function. And I see a lot of our agents were asset-based owners with DOTs and things like that.
Right.
And I've heard it many, many times that, when they joined Evans, it was just like, it was one of the best things they ever did, because they were allowed to get rid of a lot of that stuff that just bogged them down and kept them from customers.
Yeah.
So that's the short answer of that. But that's the agent expectation. Now, of course, an agent can do whatever they want to do, but their primary role is, we'll handle the back room. You go take care of customers.
So they wouldn't necessarily, when you say go take care of customers, would they be expected to go out and actually sell and approach new customers as well?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of them have their own customers they built through the years. They might not be a national or a multinational. They might not be Pepsi,
Right.
but they might be a local company that ships, two or three loads a week into that massive multinational or national hub kind of a network.
Right.
And they have a lot of those. A lot of our agents have their own customers, and many of them are second generation too, by the way. Absolutely. It just kind of gets into the family and it kind of sticks there.
So it takes a huge burden off of an individual that's looking, because they don't necessarily have to go out and get broker authority if they're interested in doing that. They don't necessarily have to go out and do that. So there's a huge expense that's associated with getting the broker's authority and the insurance and all the things in place with that. And not only the insurance, but being able to also pay contractors or pay the drivers in a timely manner, because if you don't have over 10, 15, I probably even go as far as say $50,000 to $70,000 in the bank. It kind of gets difficult to pay people in a timely fashion if you don't have it already on.
Hell, last year that was only about 2 trucks a week. That's $70,000.
Yeah, that's true. You know what, though? It's true. Like when I hear people talk about getting into the brokerage business, I always say, the first thing I say to them, how much capital do you have behind you?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's very, very difficult for brokers to factor. Because it's next to impossible, and they shouldn't be, because it's not their money. The only money that's theirs is the profit. That's theirs. And this is just, it sounds perfect. Now, and when I think of a small carrier, they've got to be responsible, by the time they hire somebody to look after safety, and they have a bookkeeper, and they pay retail for fuel, retail for insurance. Why wouldn't you hook up with an agency?
Correct. Correct. Because there's no restrictions. You go do your customers, you have your customers, keep your customers. You take the rates. It's your business to run. And another thing that kind of jumped into my mind, and I should have wrote this down. I don't know how many people we have in our technology department, but I know it spans many states and countries to who we have on retained for IT, between trace and track programs and EDIs and just data flow and real-time information between the agents.
Right.
The tablets, but we provide the drivers with the portal information on there, and the fuel discounts, and our technology group is just, you're not going to get that. I think it'd be tough to get access to the technology that like an Evans is able to offer.
You can't. How can I?
Drivers,
it would be impossible
for
you couldn't with 5 or 10 or 20 trucks. There's no way. Now, my next question though is, so you have this broker or this agent that's up in North Dakota, and he's loading his 10 trucks wherever, and a customer is expecting a shipment at 2 a.m. at an auto parts plant, let's say. Does he logs in, or he makes a phone call to a 800 number, and he's getting your tracing department somewhere?
They're working on the trace and track now. That's pretty high up on the list, but that's all there. I don't really know exactly where it's at right now. I don't get that far into it, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. Eventually that person will just, hit their phone app, and boom, there it'll be. So
now, is there a large Evans internal load board? Is that where freight gets distributed? How does that work? I'm curious with with thousands of trucks and
there is an intra board that people can post and things on. Of course, that changes with how much freight's out there and how many tenders are rejected and things like that. But absolutely. and we even work, between, the intermodal folks and the truckload people as well. So they contact truck down. Hey, I got a truck down. I'm already in Atlanta. Hey, anybody can get this from, Atlanta to the warehouse in downtown Atlanta for me, or something like that. So there's all those resources as well. And I forgot about another technology resource. If you were a truck owner and your computer went down at 10 o'clock at night, you'd be struggling trying to call whoever you can call. Evans, that's 24-hour help. If you're an agent and you need computer help, it's there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty extensive. It's
You got
like,
your own IT department.
yeah, like I said, you have access to a pretty vast, and like I said, the breadth of it all is pretty big. Very, very qualified IT department, no question.
Well, Dave, I'm looking at it, and I tell you, you were a little worried and concerned earlier, but the hour just blew right by us.
I know, it's funny because if anybody's listening, I've never done one of these, so you get all
You
that.
did a great job. You did it perfect. So you're a natural.
I'm like, Chuck, what the hell am I going to talk about for an hour?
I always equate it. So, Dave, I always equate this with just sitting down with a couple of buddies in the industry and just chewing the fat. That's all we're doing, is we just talk about what we do and how we can make things better and how we are making things better. And obviously, I think you and the people at Evans are certainly carrying your fair share of the load to make the industry better.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
So before we let all the sand run out of the hourglass, I want to give you an opportunity, Dave, to once again, I know you said a little bit earlier, but tell everybody how they can get in contact with you, how they can find you. Once again, we have the link posted up right there up underneath Dave for Evans Delivery. But if they want to get in contact with you, or you can point them in whichever direction you like to point them in.
yeah, again,
The floor is yours.
I think I'll just make it as easy as I can. 570-218-3359. 570-218-3359. That's my direct number. I could give you an email address, whatever, but just give me a call. I never go home with my voicemail light on or on. So I go home with emails not open, but I don't go home with that. So and I think it would probably be better that way, because I can help get you to the right place a little quicker once I hear what area of interest you have, and kind of where it goes. And I can get you the phone numbers of the people that can really get the stuff done for you. I think that's as simple as I think I want to make it, and leave it at that. So.
Sounds like a plan, Sam. Well, we definitely appreciate you. Are there any closing thoughts that you want to say before we get out of here as well?
No, other than thank you, Rico. Thank you, Chuck. I really appreciate the opportunity, and
thank you for joining us. This was incredible.
And
it was an extension of our weekend.
It was. We just didn't talk about superliners that much this time as we did over the weekend. But no, I do have one. I do have one closing to everybody who's listening. Thank you for your dedication to this industry. If you're in the industry. I appreciate it. It's not an easy job that all these listeners are doing. I also want to thank their spouses and significant others, because it's not an easy job to be a spouse in this industry. And I want to wish everybody a very successful and safe day.
Thank you. Very kind.
Well, Dave, we appreciate you for taking time out of your schedule to come on and join us. We are definitely grateful for you doing so. A wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. So, and I think that Evans Delivery. When Chuck told me who you had coming on at first, it didn't compute at first, and then I started thinking Evans Delivery, and then the little globe kind of. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, I know that company.
Oh yeah, and where you're at in your travels,
I see it all the time.
you see a lot of Evans trucks,
Yeah, I would.
And I don't know if I think I saw this quick second too. Amazing how many of our agents are women as well. So it's a business. It's just a business that's for everybody.
Yeah, it is.
That makes
You know what?
that
It's
makes
just
sense.
as, you know what, women get involved and love it as much as men, you know, they just get
Oh,
consumed by it.
it absolutely. And the women in trucking organization does a phenomenal job. And
Yeah, you know what?
we support that
Ellen,
group as well, and it's just great.
yeah, no, Ellen
Absolutely.
has certainly done just a phenomenal job
Oh,
uh, in what she's done.
yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Oh, absolutely, hands down.
once again, Dave, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming on board. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good rest of your evening. Chuck Snow.
Yes, if anybody needs me, send me an email, chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on the emails and I will call you back as soon as I can. And with that, Rico, I'm gonna let you back her into a hole for another week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have coming up, we're going to be trying to get some pre-recorded shows, so you may not have the ability to chat with us on some future shows. Chuck is getting ready to take a well-deserved vacation with him and his beautiful bride. They're going to take some time off for a little while, and so we're going to try to do our best on our end to kind of get some shows in the can for you guys, so that we won't even miss a beat. So hopefully we'll get those things uploaded and get that done. But I just wanted to let you know beforehand that some of the shows that's coming up may be pre-recorded and you may not have the ability to chat with us. But you can always reach us on the be social with us on all our different social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and the like, and also YouTube. You can leave us a message there. If you want to, give us a homework assignment. Tell us some things that you would like for us to try to cover in a future show, and we'll go out and try to find the industry expert to bring on to have a conversation with and tell us all about what it is that they do and to help demystify that part of the industry for us. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we want you guys to stay safe, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at your same time, same place, God willing, next week. God bless you. Good night.
Okay.
Cats on the flip-flop. God bless.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.